Tenants and advocates in Denver, Colorado want to end all evictions for unpaid rent. And their plan to do that is by making landlords pay for it. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's coming out of Denver, Colorado. Now, obviously, Denver, it's known as being kind of left leaning, kind of progressive. And, I've covered a couple of different stories over there about these anti landlord laws that actually did not pass, and I was surprised by it. But the city of Denver itself continues to push this kind of nonsense onto everyone, with these anti landlord, anti property rights laws. And fortunately, the rest of the state is keeping them in check for some of them right now. But, you can see the way things are turning. And eventually, this is going to come crashing down for those who are investing there. So this article today is covering the fact that there's tenants and advocates in the city of Denver that want to end all evictions for unpaid rent. You got to ask yourself, well, how exactly is that going to happen? And you already know. Okay, it's the same way that it happened during the whole eviction moratorium nonsense. They figured out that, hey, well, if we ban landlords from being able to evict anyone and then use government, taxpayer funds to pay their rent for them, then these people, they won't have to go anywhere. Well, it's a horrible idea because it's going to cost a fortune. And most likely it's going to cost the landlords and the taxpayers a great deal of money. So, yeah, my video title might have been a little bit misleading because landlords are the taxpayers, okay? But this is going to hit everyone within the city who has to fund the rental assistance for people who, for whatever reason, can't pay their rent, be it that they lost their job or whatever. Other people's hardship is not the fault of the entirety of society. And the only thing it's going to really do is embolden those who want to take advantage of the system, who want to be lazy and do nothing. Okay, those are the ones who are going to take. Those are the ones who are going to basically, screw all the taxpayers and everyone else over. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of a getting rid of, a tenant group proposing that they get rid of all evictions for non-payment of rent? Now, keep in mind that the grand majority of evictions are for non-payment of rent. I mean, I read statistics, and this was on New York City, keep that in mind, but over 90% of all the evictions in New York were for non-payment of rent. So, I'm assuming that it's the same way around the rest of the country. Yeah, there are reasons for evictions, for other reasons, but the majority of the time it is simple, okay? They didn't pay the rent that they owe to the landlord. And it's going to cost a fortune in order to cover all those people who are late on their rent or who are not paying it. So anyway, let's get into this article. It's quite interesting. This article is coming from denverite.com, and it says, can Denver's next mayor end no payment evictions by 2025? 18 anti-poverty groups have a plan. So yeah, these anti-poverty groups, right, they think that ending evictions for non-payment of rent is suddenly going to, slow down poverty. No, the people who make these bad money decisions, it isn't just because, their bills are too high. No, they lack a lot of financial education, and many of them don't have financial responsibility. Okay, so anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. Evictions in Denver have spiked above pre-pandemic levels, and 18 homelessness and anti-poverty groups say they have a plan for the next mayor to end all evictions for unpaid rent in 2 years. The plan is called Zero by 25. As the next mayor of Denver, you are inheriting a historic housing crisis defined by skyrocketing rents and a significant housing shortage, perpetuating record levels of evictions and first-time homelessness. The coalition wrote to both runoff candidates Mike Johnston and Kelly Bro. Displacement and eviction are traumatic for families, drive intergenerational poverty, and cost the city tens of thousands of dollars in avoidable social service costs for each person removed from their home. It doesn't have to be this way. As mayor, you can end evictions for unpaid rent. We have the tools and the knowledge to keep our neighbors safe in their homes. And they're being disingenuous here, okay? The truth is there's only one way to end all evictions for unpaid rent, and that is to pay the rent for the people. Okay, you have to pay their rent for them because they cannot come up with the money. That is the only way that you'll be able to end these evictions. So what you are proposing is, just a huge ramping up of millions upon millions of dollars in taxes so that you can fund these programs. And you saw the nightmare that the rental assistance program for the COVID-19 pandemic was. Okay, it was absolute nightmare. You had to jump through all these hoops to get it. There were huge delays. A lot of tenants didn't even qualify, and there was fraud, rampant fraud throughout the entire thing. And you think you're going to be able to ramp up a similar rental assistance program locally that's going to even slightly work? No, there's no way. It's not going to happen. Not to mention, the cost was exponential. Okay, it was exponential, and they still ran out of funds. So you're talking about putting a huge, multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded benefit program out there for the super low income people. And this is on top of the benefit programs that already exist for them. So this is going to end up costing taxpayers a huge, huge amount of money. So do you want to go back to your constituents who are paying taxes and say, hey, yeah, your property taxes doubled last year. And that's so that you as a homeowner can pay the rent for this lazy guy over here who doesn't want to work and was about to get evicted. I mean, that will be the case. Okay, that will literally be the case in some situations, not all of them, right? But there will be enough situations like that where the taxpayers themselves will question, well, why am I paying to keep this guy housed? Okay, it is not the obligation of everyone else to pay your bills for you. It is your obligation. Yeah, there's some people who fall down on hard times. We all do. However, right, there are some people who are perpetually in hard times and they can never seem to get on their feet. It's like the world is crashing down on them. And then you got to ask yourself, well, is the world truly crashing down on them? Or are they not taking personal responsibility for what is happening to them to get back onto their own feet? And they expect that everyone else does it for them. Okay, we're not your parents. We're not a charity. Landlords in particular, we're not up here. We're not the social service provider. You need to take care of your own problems. Okay, if you have financial trouble, if you got to get two jobs, so be it. If you got to move in with a roommate or with a relative, so that you can have somewhere that you can afford, so be it. Life isn't fair. We should not be expected to pay for you. The coalition points to the number of eviction court filings in Denver, which rose from 708 in March of 2019 to a 5-year monthly record of 1,195 in March of 2023. The group also notes that court filings don't account for every household that has faced eviction in that time. And so I'm going to skip down a little bit in this article so that we can go over what they, are actually suggesting, right? And so it says here, there are 3 main stages the 18 organizations hope the next mayor implements. 1, investing $55 million annually in rapidly paid emergency rental assistance integrated into the existing courthouse eviction prevention infrastructure. Investing $10 million annually in eviction legal defense, intake and navigation, and system-wide capacity building. And 3, implementing a pay-for-success model backed by a $3 million investment in measurement and evaluation. So their plan is to put rental assistance into place, right? And it says $55 million annually and rapidly paid, right? I don't believe for 1 second that this is going to be rapidly paid, okay? I just don't. Obviously, there are a multitude of reasons why people who have unpaid rent bills, right, they get evicted. And a lot of the times, the people actually can afford the rent, but they spent the money elsewhere because they have other priorities over the rent and they think they can just get away with it. So, I mean, there's situations where, hey, we don't need to be paying these people's rent for them. Like, let me give you an example. If we have a person, right, and they are making 6 figures and they're being paid or they're being evicted for non-payment of rent for a $3,000 a month apartment. I mean, think about that for a second. Or is the government going to step in and pay that person's rent for them? Maybe this should be means tested. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say here. If you want to pay people's rent for them, first of all, it should be means tested, meaning we're only going to pay the rent for people who actually are lower income and have no way to pay their rent. And you know what? Two, we're not going to use taxpayer funds in order to pull all this crap off because this doesn't benefit the taxpayers. Okay, this benefits a lot of lazy people. It benefits a lot of, like they always come out and they say, okay, well, yeah, but here's the story of this single mom and she had cancer and blah 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 blah, right? But then we turn around and the majority of the cases are not cases like that. They're actually cases of people who had bad financial management and made plenty of money and should have been able to pay the rent and chose not to do so. Or, so why should the taxpayers be on the hook for people's bad financial decisions? That's my real question. Why are taxpayers, landlords, everyone else on the hook for this? Goodness, this whole situation, it irritates me. It irritates me to no end. And they bring up the whole homelessness issue and all that. But here's the real deal, okay? You keep pushing the landlords too far. You keep pushing the taxpayers too far. You raise the taxes to pay for all these stupid social programs. You know what people do? They respond by leaving. Okay, people are like, hey, the taxes in Denver are too high, so I'm going to move elsewhere. First it's going to be the suburbs. It might be another city. It might be another state. And they're going to get as far away from that nonsense as they can because, simply put, we don't want to pay to try to resolve all the problems of everyone else in the world. It is not our responsibility. No matter how big your heart is, we cannot pay for all of the problems of everyone else.